And ladies and gentlemen, I am so fired up to introduce to you our first keynote speaker. And this woman, who I just had the privilege of chatting with in the back of the room, and I felt her energy, and I was like, this is gonna be so good. I'm really excited for all of you to meet and hear from her. She has been tagged by Success Magazine as a one-woman brand, a creativity and innovation guru, a leading serial entrepreneur by Entrepreneur Magazine, and ranked number 8 by SAP in the top 51 influencers of human potential. She has recently been selected as a delegate for the United Nations' first ever Global Accelerator for the Global Entrepreneurs Council. And she is here to talk to you about how emotional intelligence will help you to have one life fully lived. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Jen Grover!
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Such amazing energy in this room. Tim did such a better entrance, didn't he? Thought it might be difficult in these heels, but I was inspired. So welcome to those who don't live in Philadelphia. Welcome to my hometown. It was an easy commute for me this morning, thankfully. Hopefully you enjoy your time here. There's so much art and culture to see in Philadelphia, and the city of brotherly love. So hopefully you feel loved and welcomed. Today, I want to acknowledge, just like John and Tim did, because I feel it's very, very important, before every time I speak, to acknowledge your effort and investment of being in this room. Because when you invest in yourself is when you maximize your potential. When you consistently every day show up and are committed to growth, that's where people find happiness. So many people look and seek for happiness, and it's a very simple answer: growth. When you invest in growth, you find your own happiness. You keep evolving, keep changing, keep transforming. And today I want to talk to you about a topic that I believe is crucial in our society, should be taught in every school from the second a child enters school. And unfortunately, for a very long time, it's been seen as a topic that's soft skill sets. Now it's finally being called impact skill sets. And emotional intelligence, I believe, is the key to success, happiness, incredible relationships, a thriving life, and truly world peace. If everyone learned what you are about to learn, I believe we would have peace in this world. And this is why I'm on a mission to spread the importance of this and teach everyone I possibly can teach what emotional intelligence is. So before I begin, I want to ask, how many of you have heard the terminology emotional intelligence? Awesome. I had a feeling it'd be a lot of hands. How many of you can tell me what your interpretation of what emotional intelligence is?
My interpretation of emotional intelligence is not only understanding yourself, but how to deal with the conversations that you have within yourself all day, and also how to communicate your thoughts with other people so that everybody gets along. And that's pretty much my...
Do you want to come up? Bingo! Awesome. Thank you. It is, in its simplest form, exactly what he said. It's a heightened sense of self-awareness of yourself, the conversations and the processes that you're going through, and then the heightened self-awareness of others. So what I say is, it's like becoming a Yoda of your life and a Jedi to other people's lives. How many of you like to do that? Right? Think about that. Yoda to your own life, so you master yourself. And then a Jedi to others, so you can actually guide and lead in a way that helps them maximize their potential. One life fully lived isn't just about your life. More importantly, it's about maximizing the other people's lives around you, making an impact, having a legacy that when you leave this earth, people will say, wow, that person changed my life. Wouldn't that be amazing? Isn't that what One Life Fully Lived is really about? Maximizing your potential to magnify the potential in others. So as I mentioned, I live in Philadelphia, and I grew up outside of Philadelphia about 20 minutes from here. And I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. My mom actually grew up in Brooklyn, New York. She was a sassy, mouthy, old school Italian Brooklyn, New Yorker. Vince Lombardi was one of the most impactful influences in her life. He was a family friend and one of her teachers. Imagine the seeds that were planted, right? And then my dad grew up in Chester, which is near here. And for those of you who don't know Philadelphia area, Chester is probably worse than Compton, but people don't know about it as much because the news is afraid to go there. And so my dad grew up in a distressed environment, and he started drinking by the time he was 13, working on docks and just being an independent, unguided child. And he actually wound up going into the military and got his life somewhat on track. When he was in the military, he was in the Marines, and the Marines back then had very little rules compared to today. And so the level of which they endured was great. So my dad became a functioning alcoholic. And when somebody has a lot of trauma in their life, and they don't know how to process it, it comes out as fear and hurt and anger, which then begins to damage other people. I call it the piñata effect of adults. Adults that are unaware and in pain, it's kind of like the same as a kid with a piñata. They have a blindfold on and they're just swinging a bat and hitting people along the way. And so my mom met my dad here in the Philadelphia area. She had come in for a photo shoot that she was doing for work and wound up falling in love with somebody who was very charming and charismatic. And she didn't realize until she was really deep in the relationship the level of dysfunctionality. So one of my first childhood memories as 3 years of age was watching my mom get thrown down a flight of stairs onto a concrete floor in the basement. And my brother, who's only 11 months older than me, was already trained by my mom, programmed. If something happens to me, dial 0. And here's our address. So luckily, by the way, that was before 911, right? And it was on a rotary phone. So when this happened, my dad had locked the door, and we could only see under the door, and we could watch a pool of blood just expanding. And my brother luckily remembered to dial 0 and give our address. Now, I have 13-year-old twins, and it really is hard for me to grasp what we watched and witnessed coming from their eyes at this stage. And it's really amazing to me that at 4, my brother was able to have enough composure to remember to do something like that. But in him doing it, it saved her life. My mom continued this cycle of abuse, which was really interesting because in the outside world, my mom ran campaigns for politicians, had a TV show, and would speak in front of thousands of people. So as I got older, I started to think, wow, it's so weird how my mom has this life here, but then she has this life there. And she's so strong out there, but she's so beaten down in here. And it seemed so odd because it was such a dissimilar way of living. And as I watched this happen and watched the cycle of abuse, I always knew that there was something wrong with it. And I knew that there was a better way. So when I was in 8th grade, I caught my dad cheating on my mom. And I said to my mom, Dad's cheating on you. And I was really excited. And she said, I know. I've known all along. But it's easier to stay than go. And I was like, wait, what? No. This is your chance. Like, this isn't your fault. You didn't do anything. You can go now. You can go be free and find love and happiness. Feel safe. Thrive. And so she said it's going to be harder to leave. But because I now knew as her daughter, she felt that she had to set an example that this wasn't the right thing because she didn't want it for my life. So, unfortunately, my mom was right. It was a lot harder to leave. The conditions got worse. And when the divorce started to happen, the level of stress increased so much. When my mom confronted my dad, she came home, and all of his stuff was gone, and there was $400 left on the table. And my mom broke down in financial stress. She made money back then, but women at their cap made about $30,000. And her check was taken each week when she came home from work and controlled immensely. And as I watched my mom break down, I thought to myself, I actually made a sacred contract at that time, but I didn't know that I was doing it, that I would never ever allow someone to control my finances or my happiness, ever. My mom had a massive stroke a year later from all of the stress. And then a few years later, she had a massive stroke that left her in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. Captive in a wheelchair, like prisoner in your own body. And health became very important to me. Understanding stress became very important to me. While I was in college during this time period, I started to study psychology, as all people with dysfunctional childhoods do, to figure out your dysfunction. But it was such a gift because as I'm learning these principles about empathetic communication and positive reinforcement, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I didn't need to get hit with a belt to be a good kid. Somebody could have praised me for doing the right thing instead of hurting me for doing the wrong thing. And all of these things that I was programmed with just seemed so bizarre as I started to learn that there was a different, better way. And then I thought, why isn't everyone in this room? Why isn't this mandatory in school? It's a study of human behavior. Aren't we all human beings? Why wouldn't psychology be the core thing that you had to learn and build everything else upon? So now I tell people that are in high school or going to college, make sure you study psychology as a secondary major because it will help you in every single thing that you do. Whether it's business, whether it's entertainment, whether it's science, it doesn't matter. How we communicate with others, how we can express ourselves to others is the key to success. You can have a lot of great ideas, but if you can't express them, if you can't communicate with others, if you can't understand how to sell them to others, then you're really going to struggle with your good idea. So building our people skills is so important. So fast forward, as I got older, and I kept practicing all of these principles, my first business right out of college was in the fitness industry. I started my first business in 1995 when the fitness industry was brand new. It was in its infancy. I had no idea how to be an entrepreneur. I just thought it was absolutely insane that I was going to go work for somebody and make them really wealthy. So I thought I'd rather just do it for myself. And I, like most entrepreneurs, had no idea what I was doing. And this was before entrepreneurship was cool. At that point, people were like, could you not get hired somewhere? Why would you want to go start your own business? But what I was really doing was setting out on a journey to identify myself at a greater level. Entrepreneurship is a journey of self-transformation. You have to look at yourself in the mirror every single day and call yourself out on your weaknesses and identify your strengths. You have to align yourself with people to support you for your weaknesses. You have to constantly grow and evolve, or your business does what? Dies. So I love entrepreneurship, not because it's really about starting your own business, but it's just what John said in the beginning. It's about creating your life and co-creating the community around you with others. It's a powerful mechanism to live full out. It's a powerful mechanism to express yourself exactly the way you want to. And even if you work for a company, you can be an entrepreneur within your company's environment. You can express your individuality. You can think like an entrepreneur. And if the company that you're working with doesn't allow you to do that, and you're feeling stifled, we have one life, right? You might want to rethink how you're playing it. But as I got older, emotional intelligence became more and more important to me. But it wasn't really clear to me until the last 7 years. Last 5 years specifically. Now, by the way, for a very long time, emotional intelligence was called, as I mentioned earlier, soft skill sets. And I was really passionate. Everywhere I'd speak, I'd say, no, I want to talk about emotional intelligence. And they'd be like, can you just talk about branding and sales, please? And I'm like, but that is emotional intelligence. You can't be a great salesperson if you don't know yourself. You can't brand yourself if you don't know yourself. You can't innovate unless you're empathetic. It all comes down to the same principles. You can't fully reach your potential unless you're self-aware and self-reflective on an ongoing basis. So then this happened about 3 years ago. Emotional intelligence is the key ingredient to success on the front cover of the Harvard Business Review, and this was like a birthday present that never stopped giving since. Because this actually brought the spotlight onto something that will truly transform the world. And I can now go to these companies and say, see this? This is why everyone in your company needs to learn this first. This is why every school needs to learn this. Kids are actually born really emotionally intelligent. Think about kids come in this world pure love. It is the adults around them that project fears, limitations, the peers around them that might inflict pain. So we become less emotionally intelligent as more pain and trauma and limited beliefs get projected upon us. We're born emotionally intelligent, so we can get back there. One of my favorite debates, people say, once somebody some way, they can't change. How many of you in this room believe that? People can't change. I had a feeling. No one, right? Because you've all watched your own selves change, right? You've watched your own transformations. Everyone can change. We don't know what we don't know. So if you don't know how to be more empathetic and no one's teaching you, then how can you be more empathetic? So people are just missing tools in their toolbox. Some people might only have a hammer and someone gives them wood and says, build a house. They're going to have a hard time building a house with just a hammer, right? But if they give them nails and screwdrivers and a saw, is that going to be easier to build a house? Of course. So the more tools we have in our toolbox, the more effective we become in maximizing our potential. So emotional intelligence is bringing it all together. Now, a lot of people teach emotional intelligence from a psychology standpoint. I will incorporate psychology, but my background, remember, my first business was in fitness, and I was a national level fitness competitor. Nutrition is a critical part of emotional intelligence. Exercise is a critical part of emotional intelligence. Neuroscience, one of my latest obsessions, is a critical part of emotional intelligence. How I really was able to build a concrete understanding of emotional intelligence was I started studying Buddhism 15 years ago. Buddhism is not really a religion, just to clarify. Buddhism is a practice of a way of living in a state of compassion, empathy, understanding, and perfecting the art of letting go. That's what emotional intelligence is. It's just a lot harder for us to walk into a company and say, hey, can I teach some Buddhism for a while? But if it sounds like psychology, people feel more safe with it. But I don't believe you can only approach this from the mind, because the physiological state supports your emotional state, which supports your mental state. For example, how many of you are really patient when you're really hungry? Right? Or how many of you are really patient when you're tired? So our physiological state that we can control optimizes our emotional and mental state. But most people never put it together that way. When your physiological state is optimized, your mental and emotional state is optimized. But we try to separate everything and put them in categories. It's one of the worst things that we've done in our school systems, is having subjects. Everything's integrated. Nothing is separate. Nothing is separate. Everything is integrated, including how we live our lives. So why is it so important? Because it affects every single aspect of our lives. Our relationships, our health, our finances, and our own personal evolution. And as I just said, nothing in life is exclusive. Every single part of your life is integrated, connected. And when you recognize that, you're going to start to see the domino effects of all your choices. And you might change some of your choice patterns based on it. If you want to optimize your potential, you have to be self-aware of all aspects of your life. You can't just say, I'm going to become really, really successful and ignore all of your relationships. By the way, that's something that happens in our society. It's a belief that's programmed that is really detrimental. That we're programmed to believe if you do really good in school and you get really good grades and you go to a good college, then you're going to become really successful. How many of you believe in that? What they really should be saying is, if you go to school and learn how to connect with other people and learn how to understand other people and know that your creativity is your unlimited capital and know that the people around you are your human capital asset and understand how to collaborate with people and you always focus on your relationships first, then you will thrive and become successful. That's really how it happens. Thank you. All the other stuff is easy to learn. I mean, my kids learn anything they want right now. What do? They whip out their phones, Google it, and then they know how to do it. They do some awesome braids. Every time they want to try a new braid, they Google it. Anytime they want to learn how to make silly putty, I think is the latest craze, the glue, they do it. They started their own Instagram business selling that silly putty. They sell my clothes out of my closet, some with tags still, on their little Macari store. All those things are easy to learn. The self-reflection is the part that we have to master. Self-mastery. That's what makes everything else in life easier. So you can't teach somebody, in my belief system, you can't teach someone to be more successful until you teach them emotional intelligence first. So a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, Jen, I want to bring my product to market. Can you please teach me how to do it? And I say, I absolutely can teach you how to do it. But first, I'm going to teach you how to be the best version of yourself. Because if you're the best version of yourself, getting your product to market and sustaining it at market is going to be so much easier, right? Because you're going to have adversity. You're going to have a lot of no's. You're going to have some stressful moments. But if you're the best version of yourself, you can handle all of that adversity so much better, so much more effectively. And when people say no, you're going to learn how to turn them around to make them say yes. Because your energy is going to be so contagious that you're going to sell them something and they're going to leave and they're going to be like, what did they just sell us? The people around us are going to be like, I don't know, but I want to go have drinks with that person because they were so much fun. Because it's your energy that people are buying into more than your idea. So the most successful people in the world work on themselves first every single day. And by the way, from this moment forward, when I say success, I want you to know my definition of success. People who wake up every day excitedly passionate about living the life that they are intentionally creating. It's not necessarily the title that they have or the money in their bank account. And yes, I believe that abundance is really important because it helps give back to others who can't yet help themselves. But when I say success, it is not just exclusive to a title or money in a bank account, but how they are living their life blissfully, happily, intentionally, creating the lifestyle that they've decided to create. Because once you master yourself, you master your life. Like I just said, all the other stuff's easy to learn. Most people want to skip this part, though. Most people are like, no, I don't want to do that self-introspection stuff. I'm good. I got it all together. Are you good? Are you living your life to the level on which you want to live your life? Then if you're not, then this is where it has to start. Most people aren't living to their potential. They're not the best version of themselves every day because they don't know how to be. They were never given the tools to be. And so I feel it my duty that every time someone comes to ask me about starting a business or getting on television, that I teach them these principles first. I do this online course that's 8 weeks long around emotional intelligence, and I know every time I have a graduating class that those people are going out in the world such a different version of themselves. And not only are they expressing their lives at a bigger level and becoming more successful in what they're doing, but guess what they all wind up doing? They all start teaching others about emotional intelligence. That's the power of it. They turn around and start teaching others everything I learned. And that domino effect can't happen fast enough. So I want to just keep empowering all of them to turn around and teach their families and teach their communities. Many of them started teaching it themselves because it was so powerful and transformative to their own lives. So I said earlier, when you maximize your potential, you magnify the potential in others. I just posted something last night that Tony Robbins said, great leaders don't just attract great followers. They make great leaders. When you master yourself and you master your life and you magnify your potential, you can't help but shine a bright light on somebody else so that they can see the greatness in themselves. That is such a powerful gift. How many of you had that experience where you've been able to not just help yourself, but turn around and help others find their greatness? There is no money in this world. There is no material in this world that can fill you up that same way. There's none. And if you haven't experienced it yet, I implore you to please experience it. Be very intentional about it. Every single day I wake up and I say, who can I inspire today? Whose life can I change today? Whose life can I make better today? And it might be the same homeless man that I just saw right outside of Wawa, who was opening the door for everybody and looking at them in the eyes and saying hello and saying thank you and treating them like a human being. So to review, before going forward, emotional intelligence affects every aspect of our lives. Every choice you make, every reaction you have, and every problem can be solved more effectively by increasing the emotional intelligence of every individual. Emotional intelligence is a heightened sense of self-awareness, along with the awareness and understanding of others, so that you have a better understanding of the choices you make, and you can identify what self-limiting beliefs and behaviors may be holding you back from achieving your goals. I'm going to pause there for a second. How many of you know, or even have been yourself, someone who will repeat a pattern or cycle that maybe isn't to your best advantage? How many of you have known the same person that dates the same person with just a different name and a face and expects a different result? Or how many of you know someone who starts a business and says, no, this is it this time. This is it. And they go back to their same old patterns and self-sabotage? Or how many of you have ever known someone that says, this is the year I'm losing 15 pounds. This year, this is it. I'm going to the gym every day. I'm going to eat healthy. And then go back to the old pattern. Does anyone have any idea why that happens? Anyone have any idea why people will start out with an intention and goal and go right back to the same pattern?
Because they go back to their comfort zone.
Yes. They go back to their comfort zone. Any other thoughts to that?
They don't have a structure in place for accountability.
They don't have a structure in place for accountability, absolutely, or a strategy, tactics to change a pattern.
The habits in their brain is what they always fall back on.
Yep, the habits in the brain, the comfort zone, the motivation.
The new them they want to create is not congruent with their real identity as they perceive themselves inside.
That's awesome. The new them is not congruent with how they still see themselves. Ooh, huge one. Huge one. The people you hang out with create who you are, right? If people are going to bring you back to that same cycle and that same pattern, you're going to go back to the same cycle. But if you're hanging out with high-level achievers who are achieving great things, and you're like, oh my God, I just woke up at 6 and 4 of my friends wrote a book already. That's how I feel when I look at my Facebook wall. I wake up and my friends are doing amazing things, going amazing places, and I'm like, wow, I thought waking up at 6, I was like on top of things. There was somebody right over here. Ooh, that's a huge one. And that's a course within itself, by the way. She says you're so used to feeling the same way. So you didn't energetically change your state. That's a whole quantum physics, which, by the way, I include a lot of quantum physics in what I teach, but that's a whole quantum physics lesson. They might not want it. The desire might not be there enough.
So what I was thinking is, thank you. So what I was thinking was people don't really change their belief systems. And what happens is on a subconscious level, they aren't engaged and enrolled in their own vision. On a conscious level, they believe that someone can do it because they can do it because someone else can do it, right? But when it comes to a subconscious level, they don't believe it themselves, so they don't actually take action to go follow through on their dreams because they don't believe they can actually achieve it.
Yes. Do you want to teach this course? That's exactly right. The conscious and subconscious mind are not meeting. So consciously, they're making a decision that their subconscious mind, their belief systems have not yet changed. I'm going to take two more.
They're not clear on their why.
They're not clear on their why. What's motivating them to do it? Yep. I'm gonna go back there and then I'll come right there. Sorry.
They're fear conditioned because of failure.
The fear of failure. That's huge. Yeah.
That the pleasure we see in making that change is not as motivating internally as the pain of actually changing. And so to change, there's a great deal of pain, and we don't see the pleasure as being enticing enough to actually go through that pain to get through that barrier.
Yep.
And so
some people actually become addicted to pain, drama, feeling down. They don't know it necessarily, but that's where they're conditioned. Their emotional state is conditioned. So pain and discomfort, pain and discomfort actually feels more comfortable to them than bliss. I actually have a client who was surrounded by a lot of drama people. And she eradicated those people out of her life so that she could get to the next level. And she said to me, sometimes I catch myself like, whoa, everything feels great right now. What can I do to sabotage it? Because she's so used to the drama that it feels weird that she has bliss and quiet and peace in her life. It feels weird to her. And she actually can catch herself going, oh, it feels so weird to be in this good state. What can I do to create chaos? A lot of people do that because they're not self-aware enough to change it. As you become more emotionally intelligent, you actually can start to say, okay, I'm noticing a pattern in my life. What am I doing to participate in this pattern? The person that's not emotionally intelligent will say, this person did this to me, this person did that to me, this person did that, and they're not taking responsibility for anything. And even though somebody else did something, we all play a role. And it's our opportunity to gain wisdom from that role. So the difference between emotional intelligence in the old personal development style versus this style is motivation is short term. Motivation is a short-term goal, it's willpower. The truth of change is transformation into what was said over here, actually getting the conscious mind and subconscious mind to align so that you can transform forward. So I'm going to give you an example. And this is a pattern technique in emotional intelligence. If I had my childhood that I did, and every Friday I would go to my grandmom's, and my grandma would just give me so much love, and I'd feel so safe there. And every Friday, we'd watch Lawrence Welk. How many of you in this room? And we'd eat pizza. And then after the pizza, I'd get ice cream with chocolate jimmies. By the way, jimmies is a Philly word. Sprinkles. What am I going to crave every time I am in emotional distress? Pizza and ice cream. Because I've made an emotional subconscious connection to the pizza and ice cream of feeling safe and loved. And that, by the way, is how the diet industry can be eradicated when we learn emotional intelligence. Because we can always go back to our pattern. We can identify and change the emotional state. So how am I doing on time? I thought there was going to be a clock up here. I just want to make sure. Am I good? Oh, it's right there. Perfect. Wait, were you holding that up? I was so in the zone, I didn't even know. Love it. So I was a sugar addict, like a true addict, where I truly would think, I wish there was AA for sugar addicts. Can anyone guess why I was a sugar addict? A stress of what? Yes? So, yep. It did taste delicious, but I wasn't actually addicted to the taste as much as I was the chemical effect.
Yeah, you also had grown up in that emotional condition that we numb out our feelings with something.
Yes. So the emotion, the chaos of my childhood creates you to find something to soothe you. So sugar was my addiction. It would create a chemical reaction, a dopamine reaction, that became addicted to. So again, it wasn't actually the sugar. It was the chemical soothing. It was my drug. It was my drug of choice. And most people don't realize that sugar is actually really, really bad for your brain. It's really bad for your body, but it's really bad for your brain. So if you ever are in a state where you want to optimize your mental clarity, stay away from sugar. Which is so weird because my kids do those standardized tests, which is another conversation in and of itself. But every time they get a break, guess what the teacher was giving them? Candy! Candy! I finally went to school and I said, I am so sorry, I can't contain this. And I know that you guys don't learn neuroscience, which is another conversation too, because in first grade, you should be learning how your brain works so that we don't have to have this conversation in seventh grade. But all this stress is being put on these kids to perform on this test, and you're giving them candy in between, which is numbing their brain, which is dumbing them down. So if you want them to optimize, please send them outside and get oxygen. Because oxygen is how your brain is stimulated. By the way, here's a quick tip for you. Speaking of oxygen to the brain. In our society, it's conditioned that yawning is rude. But the truth is, if you yawn, it actually is the fastest way to uptake oxygen to your brain. So every day on the way to school, my daughters and I do 10 big yawns before they go to school. And I tell them before they take a test to yawn. Even if they have to leave the classroom, yawn. It brings oxygen to your brain quickly. And then your brain can function at a higher level. Breathing, breath work is really important. If you want to investigate breath work, it is a game changer in how your brain can function. We usually shallow breathe from here, but if we actually breathe more expansively, our brains function at a higher level. So anyway, I was a sugar addict. I believe that I consciously, subconsciously became a fitness competitor, because when you tell people you're a fitness competitor, they look you up and down, right? And so I wanted my vanity to be the override to my willpower. It doesn't work that way. I was still addicted until I changed my emotional state and my emotional relationship with the sugar, which happened when my children were 1. Actually, I'm sorry, it happened when my children were 2. And I was starting to feel a little bit back to myself after being sleep deprived for so long. And I went to work this one day, and they went to preschool at that time, and I was doing this little checklist that I do every day, and I'm plowing through my checklist, and I was just on. How many of you know when you're just like on, right? I was on. And then I went to my kids' school for this little Halloween party. And I ate the icing off the cupcake because I really didn't care about the cupcake. It was just the icing. That's how much of a sugar addict I was. I went back to my office, and about 20 minutes after I got there, I felt like laying under my desk, taking a nap, and canceling all my phone calls and meetings and not dealing with one employee for the rest of the day. And at that moment, it hit me. That sugar stole my energy. And I became angry at the sugar. Angry at it. And I changed my emotional state with the sugar in that moment. And I never said I can't have that anymore. But I would look at it and say, ugh, it's going to make me tired. I don't have time to be tired. I don't want to feel tired. Do you see how different that is than the diet industry? I can't have that. You can't have it. It's going to cause you to gain weight. Now I look at it and say, I don't have time for it. Because I like my energy too much. I like my mental clarity too much. I respect feeling good too much. I don't like to feel horrible. And that makes me feel horrible. And in that moment, I have not really ever touched sugar again in the form of a dessert, candy, or anything. And I have no desire to. Because remember, I didn't say I can't have it. I say I don't want it. I don't have time for it. There's a very big scarcity versus abundant and empowered mindset. I got you this time. When you think in the terms of a diet mindset, it's scarcity. It's fear-based. But if you say, I don't have time for that, I choose not to have it, it is empowered. It's an intentional choice. And if we could do that with all aspects of our lives, then we have a lot of power to change. So real fast, as I'm getting the 5-minute warning, we need to shift in order to keep evolving forward, to get out of the state of motivation into transformation. Whenever we want to change something about us within ourselves, we need to get to the root of what's causing that cycle. What is the limited belief? What is the belief around that? A lot of us have beliefs that we don't even know about. I was dating somebody a few years ago who would always self-sabotage. And I'd always be like, why are you self-sabotaging? And would always cause problems in the relationship. And I finally realized 1.5 years into the relationship that he believes all relationships fail. I was like, wait, you could have told me this 1.5 years ago. I could have saved myself some time here. Because if that is your belief, you will ruin it every time. If you believe all relationships fail, until you change that belief, all of your relationships will fail. Because you will make them fail. So we need to always get to the core of the root to our beliefs in order to transform forward. That causes some self-introspection time, some meditation time. Also, emotional intelligence takes from intellect to wisdom. So what are we learning from each situation? I mentioned I have a problem with the standardized tests for this reason. My kids are regurgitating information. I don't want them to regurgitate information. I want them to take information and turn it into wisdom. That's how thought leaders are created. That's how innovation happens. That's how change happens. Just because it existed in this kind of context of information, we can keep transforming it into wisdom. We don't know all that we're going to know at this moment. So I want to create a future of leaders who gain wisdom to maybe inspire change further and further in innovation. Working hard versus working smart. It is the old belief that if you work hard, you become really successful. I know a lot of people that work really, really, really hard and will probably only make $30,000 for the rest of their lives because they have a lack belief. They have self-worth defeat. But if you work really smart, then you leverage your assets. You understand your creativity is your unlimited capital. By the way, it rains abundance all day, every day in my world. Where? Right out of the sky, idea after idea after idea. It's up to me to take the action though, right? I need to take the action, but I'm not lacking an idea. So I'm raining ideas all day, every day. That's raining abundance. I need to take the action to turn that into something else. And then I actually recognize all my resources around me. Human capital, your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. So focusing on our relationships, the health of your relationships is in direct proportion to your success. The health of your relationships is in direct proportion to your success. Emotional intelligence builds this foundation so no matter what comes your way, you can get over it faster. Every day isn't perfect in my world, but when adversity comes, I step over it quickly. I move through it. I process the emotions. I don't ignore the emotions, by the way. I process the emotions. It's really not good for your health to try to ignore the emotion, but to process it, work through it. So I have 1 minute left, and I'm going to go through this list. I'm doing a workshop later on today, so I will keep building on this for those who are in there. But emotional intelligence, the benefits of it, and why I believe so passionately in people diving into it more deeply. And for those of you who are not with me later on today, there's a book called The Buddhist Boot Camp. And that's a great segue into learning more about this. There's a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a lot more superficial. Anything about Buddhism actually teaches this in full principle, in your conditioning. Emotional intelligence decreases obesity, stress, anxiety, mental clutter, depression, drama, fighting bullying, divorce, separation, alcoholism, drug abuse, and addictive behaviors. Would the world be a better place if we decrease all those things? And in exchange, we will increase our health, our wellness, our productivity, our innovation, finances, economy, happiness, life fulfillment, world peace, safety to thrive, relationship satisfaction, and effective communication skills. Would the world be a better place by increasing all those? Would we be better people in our own lives if we can increase all of those? Waking up every day to be the best version of ourselves every day. So one principle I want to leave you with that I really feel is a life changer for many people, and if I don't see you later today, I don't want you to miss out on this. Actually, two principles. Nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. Nothing in this world has meaning until you give it a meaning. Even if someone cheats on you, steals from you, or does something else to you, you get the power to give it a meaning. And that is where wisdom comes in. And the other one is hurt people, happy people never hurt people. So if someone's being mean to you, if someone's being rude to you, you step into a place of compassion and empathy. If you want to take it further, you can step into a place of understanding. But hurt people, happy people never, ever hurt people. So if someone's mean or rude, they are in pain. And so you don't need to make it about you. It has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the state that they are in. And so when you're out in the world and you're living your life to the fullest and you see somebody being angry, you either walk away from it and make nothing about you, or you can step inside and say, hey, is everything okay? What's going on? How can I help you? Obviously, you're not in a great state. And you can actually allow someone a safe space of freedom to release. I appreciate all of your time this morning, and I hope that you all continue to invest in yourselves, live your life full out, and hope that you all make this not just about you, but more so making a massive impact in changing the world. Thank you very much. Thank you. 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 Have a great morning, everyone.
Jen, that was awesome.